Welcome back to Uncaged Leaders. I'm your hostess, Mariquita Solis, the Uncaged Heart Coach. This show is dedicated to the successful man who's ready to end the soul war and build a life of genuine courage and purpose. So today I'm very excited to welcome John Stringer, an amazing musician who's living with an uncaged heart. John is an award winning international best-selling author, Billboard-charting singer songwriter, and conscious business leader who guides successful men to achieve consistent peak performance through emotional and spiritual alignment. A featured teacher alongside experts from The Secret, including Joe Vitale and Marie Diamond, and the author of The Abundance Vibration, A Guide to Alignment. John's work integrates high-level business strategy with deep personal healing. As a former true collaboration leader, working with executives from companies like Netflix, Cisco, Microsoft, and NASA, John channels divine intelligence to teach men how to end their soul war, move beyond mere drive, and access limitless love, life, and purpose in every aspect of life. He's also the host of the Alignment podcast. And I've heard your wonderful music at Unity North Atlanta, John, and I've felt your heart through that. So thank you for being a guest on this show. You are an uncaged leader, and I'm honored to have you here.
My pleasure, and thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we had some really good conversations a few minutes ago, and so let's get into it again.
That's right.
I wanted to find out, John, about your childhood. What was that like as a little boy? What were you taught it means to be a man as a little boy? It meant to be a man. And did you have a father that was teaching you what a man really is?
Great question. So my upbringing was with a single mother. So I didn't have a father figure in the home, which I actually now think was a blessing in some ways because it gave me this appreciation for emotion, this appreciation for more feminine aspects, and a great appreciation for women. I grew up with my sister and my mom, right? And so that was the family unit, me, my sister, my mom. And don't get me wrong, I made plenty of mistakes growing up and learning from those as well. But my mom was really big on the little things and how much they mean. And she would emphasize that to me. It's the little things, son. Understand this. It's the little thing, just lessons like that. So I got a lot of teaching from her as far as how to be a man. In addition, I would get role models in my life, like my best friend's dad. He was someone I looked up to, and he would give me a little more by observation than direct teaching, but because I'd spend the night at my best friend's house and get to observe his dad. I had some other teachers in church and different things, and in school, of course, male role models. The biggest, though, inspiration for me as far as being a man came in 8th grade. Well, before that, a principal who said something to me that always stuck with me. It's like, you're gonna go on and do something big in the world. And I was a troublemaker when I was young, by the way. I'll just add that. So for him to pull me aside and tell me that just one-on-one really stuck, right? I had other male figures that really made an impression. Reggie White, he was a cousin and a famous football player that poured into me and my best friend at one time. And then we found out we were related. I was like, holy cow, that's so cool. But then in school, when I got to 8th grade, I got kicked out of a public school. I was so rambunctious. Excuse me, a private school, and then went to a public school and learned about the civil rights movement. And Martin Luther King Jr. it was the first time I was learning about it. Martin Luther King Jr. became a kind of a focal point and a catalyst for my change when I began to finally decide I wanted to serve, but I didn't have it. It wasn't clear yet. I didn't understand what that meant, but wanted to have an impact. And I defined greatness based on who he was and what he was able to accomplish. And what he did was served humanity, right? Oh, so yeah, that's the long story of the way my influence of being a man kind of came in different ways. Then as I got older, of course, culture, um, movies, media, and all of that influenced it as well. And as I got older, I realized some of it was very dysfunctional.
Mm.
So what I'd learned and what I was emulating, etc., was not what didn't feel good. Bottom line, and I've had a lot of emotional issues and psychological trauma. Like I did really well in school, got a nomination to the military academies, got to pick which one I wanted to go to, and went to West Point. While there, that's when it really began to show that I was having trouble emotionally and psychologically to be able to focus and be in a pressure situation and still be able to take care of everything without my emotions going awry and sabotaging me. My emotions kept sabotaging me. And I was like, what is going on? I got something up. Why can't I do this? That kind of feeling. And so that whole thing began to expose. In college, I ended up transferring to Morehouse College, and during that time, that began to expose some of the things I learned about being a man weren't working. And so I had a beautiful experience of breaking down in college and realizing I got to find something different. So that was a turning point.
That's amazing. And I'm thankfully you experienced that early on. I mean,
Early, yes.
yeah, because some men, I mean, they are stuck in this repression of emotions their whole life, and it's a very
Yeah.
flat existence. So, and it starts when they're young. I mean, studies show that as young as 3 and 4, little boys are repressing emotions, and that is so damaging. And did you see other little boys, or as you were growing up as a young man, having this effect? I mean, seeing this repression of emotions on your friends, or where they were taught not to cry or silenced.
Oh yeah. That's the culturally where I grew up. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and
You
uh,
did? I
yeah.
did too.
Oh, did you really? How cool! I went to Chattanooga Christian School. That was the private school I went
Yeah.
back to. But going to in that arena of Southern city, at the time I think it was very Christian leaning, but the typical idea of kid boys toughen up, don't cry, and different things, which isn't bad per se. The challenge is when you take that to the extreme and then you end up suppressing this natural part of you that allows you to release trauma, and instead you shut that whole process down and store trauma and it creates this block in both in energetically, psychologically, emotionally, etc., and it becomes a dysfunctional aspect that sometimes you can't figure out where it's coming from. But it's not just that. So I think the fact that some people call it emotional intelligence, but the fact that culturally young men were not being taught how to value and navigate emotion in a healthy way caused long-term repercussions and effects that we still see. As you and I were talking about earlier, if you don't value it in yourself and learn to suppress it, you begin to do the same in others, right? You look at those who are in tune with the emotion and those and devalue them because you think something's wrong with them because they know how to express or deal with or feel it and release it. And you're like, oh, you're weak or you're this, that, and the other. It's like, no, that's actually intelligent. That's the release. Do you look at a baby and do that, and judge it because it wants to release it, But the irony is, yes, many are taught that is the manly or macho way to deal with things, when in reality I no longer believe that. in fact, I believe restoring men to wholeness and integration with their emotion is what's healthy. What's been taught is suppression and separation of dealing with emotion and that energy, and it creates blocks, health problems, all kinds of stuff. And men, I wonder what at 18 through probably 35 or 40, why am I so mood swinging? Why? Because I'm suppressing it and beating the heck out of it, and then one day I'm waking up and I can't figure out why I'm so angry.
Right.
It's trying to get out.
There's no way. I mean, it's going to come out at some point. And,
Yeah.
and as little boys, when if you suppress your emotions as a child, you're denying part of yourself. I mean, and it's like, I think it was Judy Chu's research that I think it was from that, saying that you're not good enough. I mean, you're learning right then as a little boy, who you are is not good enough, and you have to hide it, and it's not welcomed. And I mean, and to turn against yourself, I mean, how could that, I mean, that is so destructive to the soul.
It is. And the reality is, as we were also talking about, you have this ideal that you're taught when your true nature as a young man, you're going to be, so, I mean, there's degrees of sensitivity and emotional behavior, but you're going to have emotions. It's human. And so to be taught to only exhibit certain types of emotions and suppress others, like crying or even compassion and sensitivity, or, when your feelings get hurt, like to just stuff it down and not learn how to navigate that in a healthy way so you can even release and grieve it or let it pass. And the lightness that comes from grieving, the lightness that comes from crying, suppressing all that ends up with this heavy load and this heavy energy that gets stuck and blocks the natural flow of joy. Like, you don't experience life like you could be, or had you been taught how to navigate those emotions, how to release those emotions, how to experience them fully and receive their actual gifts. Like, there's actual gifts in grief and crying. I welcome it now. Our dog just recently died, man. I welcome every tear I could get to just let it out and grieve and let it. And any moment is come, I'm not suppressing it at all. I've cried about 3 times, right? And let it pass, and I feel good. And I'm blessing the dog, and I've cherished the memories, but I'm not stuck or suffering. You know what I'm saying? I'm like naturally grieving it and just welcoming that as part of the life experience. But the same divisive type of energy and intention that you see often expressed in culture, where there is polarity, enmity, and like judgment of each other. It's that same type of separation that's in the self when we begin to demonize emotion, sensitivity, compassion, and natural aspects of the human expression and the human experience. We divide it even, and I'm not saying like, oh, men need to be just like women or anything like that, but I'm saying there's an essence of commonality that men need to learn to express, to feel, and to integrate and accept instead of demonizing and suppressing, because that's causing dysfunction and disharmony within the self, much less within relationships. Because when you demonize it and suppress it here, you do the same externally when you see it appear in another, in our women, and so we don't appreciate and value that ability for women to navigate and communicate and express, because we demonized it in ourselves. So how are you going to have a connecting relationship when you don't recognize what's going on? You
can't.
Good luck.
And someone accused me of wanting men to act like women. And
Exactly.
I know, and that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking that
Yeah.
we all feel as human beings. I mean,
Yes.
that we experience the joy of humanity,
Bingo.
and then it was also said that when he said men can express emotions basically um, when they've tried everything else as last resort, then it's okay to express emotions then.
That's funny. Who said that? Somebody was just telling you that?
No, this was a Facebook post last week
Okay,
that I had
that's
made.
funny.
And
Hey,
so, you
to
know,
each their own. If it worked for you, good luck. That doesn't work for me.
no, I mean, as a last resort, then you can. I mean, then what does that mean? Like, if you're in a relationship with a woman and you want to express love, but she's not getting the message, then finally, after she doesn't get the message and probably is ready to leave you, then you can express emotion. This doesn't even make sense.
It
And then
doesn't.
there was the argument that because of emotions, women are not good leaders because of their emotions. So, I
Hmm.
mean, we are, as a woman, of course, women are emotional. However, men can be very emotional with anger and lust and these emotions that are okay, but that's not being qualified as being emotional. However, they're just as emotional, but it's the women that are considered emotional. And you can't be good leaders when you're emotional. And and this person, yeah, said that's why women are not leaders. And I think I'm very emotional and I am a good leader.
Yep.
and I'm not I'm not a basket case over here when I
Mhm.
feel right. That was another thing that was said that when women express emotions, that basically they all just fly out. When women feel, the emotions go everywhere. But I'm a big feeler, I'm an empath. And I also know how to regulate my emotions. Now, if emotions are not regulated because they're suppressed, where does that leave men and in
Yeah.
relationship?
Yeah. That the irony is when you don't know how to properly navigate emotion, you drown in it, right? Or you suppress it and it explodes and finds an outlet some other way, right? So there's these different expressions of dysfunction and probably other things in between. But what I'm learning now, I think of emotion like energy in motion, the wonderful waves, right? And it expresses, it can be smooth with little ripples, it can be feisty, it can be, but it's just this energy in waves, right? And as we learn to navigate it, what happens is we almost like if it's really rapid, we can learn to surf it. Right? We can learn to transcend or rise above and watch it and appreciate it. But what does that look like practically? I'll give you an example. What I've learned, a simple thing that we can recognize is when anger arises, it's such a beautiful indicator of possibility within us, though. This possibility of, okay, what's creating this incredible feeling? I've learned the only way to truly find harmony with that, besides like what I've learned is the process of getting present and like for those who are like, what do you mean present? I mean like breathing and bringing my attention and awareness to the physical sensations and being present with it. Just like if you had a friend that you really missed and they came to talk to you, you'd be present and listen. I begin to listen to the body and the emotion and be present with it, and then begin to actually inquire and go from just the conscious mind, the limited aspect, to beginning to listen to the subconscious mind and actually receive what is it trying to tell me. Often what I found, a pattern that shows up in me, and it's common, is hurt. When we have hurt and we suppress hurt, it often turns to anger. And that is dysfunctional. We end up fighting the external and fighting what's out here when the real dysfunction is within. So that presence can help uncover that release the hurt, in fact, transform the hurt where necessary, because that brings true healing. And then we can move forward with clarity.
I
Mari,
don't know.
can you still hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I don't know
my
what's going
screen
on. My
was-
computer acted weird last night, so I'm going to come out of the room and try to come back in. But
Okay, you got it.
yeah, I'd like to. But yeah, you're still live, so yeah,
Perfect.
just
I'll continue on that topic then.
yeah,
How about
continue
that?
on it because this is very
You got it.
important. Shutting down emotions
Yeah.
and how it affects relationships. So I'll be back. All right, it might
You
give
got it.
me a few minutes. Keep going.
So I'll tell a story of one of the practices that I was blessed to use, and I'm going to zoom in here. One of the practices I was blessed to use is with a friend. He and I used to actually come together and create space to be present and express what's going on emotionally, and to create that presence so we could listen and inquire and find out the root of what was going on with us, like what was ailing us or what was frustrating us. We used to have these gatherings, just the two of us, to be present with each other and allow each other to express and communicate emotionally what was going on inside. And it was a beautiful time of learning, just two men coming together and learning what's happening, what's causing a lot of the emotional charge, and beginning to understand ourselves more, like suppressed hurt leading to anger, just being one example. But all these patterns we began to see in ourselves helped us when we feel this hurt, instead of it becoming anger next time by suppressing it, we'd be able to embrace it and navigate it differently. Why? For me, what I learned is most people, well, I won't say most people, some people understand this, and it's common knowledge now that past trauma can lead to dysfunction in the present, whether it be cultural, societal, or individual. So if we've had something happen in our childhood, when we are adults, we may feel dysfunctional every time something similar happens because we never dealt with and healed that trauma. By healing, I mean been present with and shifted the conclusions, the way it was stored in our psyche, etc. It's not always even things we might be able to clearly articulate, but it requires presence to undo the coding in the blocks and the storage we've created around it that's causing the dysfunction. My greatest breakthroughs came with my buddy doing this practice together. And then later in my 50s, I'm over 50, by the way, hopefully, might not look it, some people tell me, but wanted to just put that out there. When I got to my 50s, that's when I finally got, well, really late 40s, I finally got help. Consistently, I realized I want to take it even to a higher level, because the ability to function at a high emotionally intelligent level is like sports. Not everybody's doing it. It's not common, and you don't have a lot of people teaching. It's not taught in every household, right? You got to go to a coach. You got to go get some training, right? Because it's just not that's not the way we live. This isn't Sparta, you know? So I realized in my 50s, if I want to really have these higher breakthroughs and change how I'm showing up in the world and really create more harmony, I need help. I can't do it alone. I've been able. Go ahead.
Stop right there, because men don't ask for help, and we're very taught to be independent. Even women now, I don't need anybody.
And the reality is, I believe that for most of even my spiritual life, I believed, all right, I'm tired of listening to other people. I remember making the decision that I'm going to go direct. 2006. I'm done with hearing from this person's opinion, that person's opinion. I wanted direct, and I broke through, and I began to receive teachings and guidance direct, and been applying it, and like, great, I'm on. And then years later, I'm finally here. Now it's time to get help. I'm like, wait, I got it direct. It's like, yeah, but you're not meant to do it alone. We're meant to do it in community, and we're meant to do it in a way that has us experience serving one another, giving and receiving, not just giving, not just receiving from the essence of who we are, and never receiving from the other, right? And giving. So that give and take is what I begin to see as, oh wow, this is how you get to a higher level. You don't do in sports. It's easy to see that the highest performing athletes, I don't know any athlete who's won a gold medal alone, who taught himself to wrestle and taught himself to sprint and never had a coach, self-taught all the way and beat everybody. It just doesn't happen. Maybe one day, but that's not how it's usually designed. Same thing with I believe our performance. In fact, most people who financially have these incredible breakthroughs and write books about it and tell you the story, all tell you need mentors. You need people to coach you and help you. So I did that, not just on the financial, but on the emotional and spiritual side. I call him my therapist. And this guy, but the good news is the one that I work with and I've worked with for years now is a like-minded spiritual practitioner that could adapt to my practice and could help coach me and help me expand in that practice. And it wasn't that I was going to him to rely on him. I was going to him to teach and help me expand in how to rely on that power that we all have. And it began to help me navigate the emotion more and go back to the traumas, identify those traumas, and find a new way of shifting them, expanding them even beyond, built on what I did with my buddy, and expanded in a whole new capacity of how to access things that we have incredible access to, that are transformative and make no logical sense. Like, had you told me while I was in the Army, West Point Military Academy, that, oh, you know what's happening with you right now? You know why you're feeling out of control? You have some emotional trauma. Let's go into your subconscious and let's bring in the higher consciousness and intelligence and the divine energies and colors to help heal and transform that emotional wound from childhood. I looked at you like, what are you talking about? That's ludicrous. Guess what? Now I do it all the time. I'm using that practice because it works. But there's, even in genius, the study of genius now, that's really what opened my eyes, by the way. I'll go back to when I was in my 20s touring the world. I'd left Morehouse College, pursued music, end up in countries I'd never heard of, Curacao, Kwajalein, Cuba 6 times, playing with my rock band, having a blast, and then hit writer's block. And I began to, we'd had a top 10 Billboard single chart hit, and I hit writer's block for our next album, and I began to study how do you on demand access inspiration and creativity, because I'm stuck. I can't seem to get it to work anymore. That's when I begin to see going beyond the logical, going beyond the analytical, reasoning, rational mind, and accessing the creative, inspirational, and limitless possibility mind. And the way I recognized it was genius, because I'd heard from, begin to study actually and hear the stories of Hendrix, of Michael Jackson, Mozart, Beethoven, all these greats, and even inventors, and started to see the overlap of how the creative process worked. And it's not, even scientists who are at the highest level know creativity and inspiration. There's a illogical part of it, this incubation stage that you enter, and then you allow the inspiration, the subconscious, to birth the inspiration and solve the problems outside of the conscious mind. That's what I begin to understand. And it's the same thing with the therapy I use now. We do it at the subconscious level, but we work with the conscious level to bring in this amazing power to recode and shift what's going on subconsciously, and that changes everything. So my traumatic wounds, I was able to use the similar process that I use the song for songwriting, right? Accessing the subconscious and transforming it into something that now when I think about it, it's positive. Now, the things that I had suppressed that hurt so much and when I looked at were painful, I look at now and I feel gratitude and bliss. It makes no logical sense. But men don't get taught that often, unless they're open and have some of them have to have had enough suffering to even be willing to open up and seek something different, unfortunately. So whoever your friend was about, okay, expressing emotions is a last resort. To some men, that is true. They're finally ready when there's no other way. They're willing to express it. But there's better ways and easier ways. I think we'd agree.
Yeah, definitely. And what is so interesting is there are very many logical men that want to control relationships, not just logical men, but logical people,
Yeah.
that want to have this control over love. And love, authentic love can't be controlled. It's a force greater than anything in this world. It's a powerful force that is just abundant and it will not stop. And when we are trying to put love in a box, which it sabotages relationships when you're trying to logically control. That's about controlling and boxing in love, and love is an expansive force. And some people would say that they do have healthy relationships, and it might be healthy if you're coming from a place of not living in authenticity, where two people are not being authentic and it works. But when you have an authentic relationship, it's so different. And that is not logical. Could you talk
Yeah,
about that a little bit? And it's
absolutely.
frightening. For a lot of logical men who want to, or women that want to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this because I can't control it and it doesn't make sense. What would you say to that person?
So I can only speak from my experience, and what I have observed is the first step that I found to healthy relationship externally, whether with a partner, like I've been married 22 years now, or pretty much in any kind of relationship with the self, even that first step that I'm learning is to recognize where the problems are coming from. Kind of like AA, how they say, I think this is AA, but they say something like, hi, I introduce myself and I'm an alcoholic, or,
Right.
you gotta accept that there is a problem. Right.
Something's not working.
Yeah. I think that is classic, first step for men, in relationships, to recognize that. Because if you don't think you have a problem, well, okay, you're probably not going to do anything about it. But the recognition of that is really how you're feeling in the relationship, and how is it fulfilling? Is it um balanced in harmony? And sometimes you can be oblivious to that. You might even know your partner is miserable. They may be hiding it or what have you. But I think deep down, because of you reap what you sow, there's often you may be in denial and learn to deny it, but you can really be with yourself late at night and feel, is there really fulfillment here? Is there really this um expression of, yeah, this is how it should be. Like, I'm living my dream. I'm living what is most fulfilling. So admitting that, getting real with that, I think is that first step. And from there, I feel like it becomes, so that's an awareness thing, like not just being distracted by everything else, but really doing that work to become aware. How am I feel? Am I fulfilled? You gotta wake up. And then from there, you can actually begin to clarify what you really want. Because if you haven't, it's like if you're going through life distracted, having these swings and not really fulfilled, but just going through the motions, you probably won't change anything because you're not taking the time to really feel into, wait, is this it? I've got the education, I got the job, I got the wife and kids, I got this, that, and the other. I'm living. Is this fulfilling? Is this it? Is this what I really want? How do I feel about my life? And as you begin to do that, you can get clear on what do I really want if it's not meeting that. So you don't have to fix what's not broken. And so if you really don't feel like anything's broken, there's little anyone can do for you anyway. But there are plenty of people who, once they take that time to really become aware, will recognize they are living unfulfilled relationships and unfulfilled lives. And those are the people that need to get clear on what they really want. And then when they start to do that, they'll start to see, the limited, conditioned ideal of society might not actually match what you really want. And what you really want is often at the, not necessarily the out picturing, but the in picturing of it. In other words, the desire, that seed is of God. That seed is of the source of life wanting to express more in, as, and through you. But you've been giving it away or suppressing it or letting it go because you think the ideal in this limited box is what you should be. When you go here and clarify that intention, it also takes a decoupling and deconstruction. Because like men, for example, you mentioned lust and things like that. For men, everybody, not everybody, many people in my generation growing up and going to college thought polygamy was the answer, right? For men, oh yeah, this is the dream. This is what I really desire. When in essence, what was really being desired was this incredible love for all humanity, an incredible love and freedom and this bliss. Some people call it tantra, right? And it's not just sexual. It's the ability to be present and loving and feel the sensual bliss for life itself. What we were really wanting to get in touch with is our birthright of bliss, the sensual bliss of living. And we felt like, well, the only way is through many women or whatever. And I had to decouple that and get to the root of the desire and realize, oh, that desire is an internal solution. It's not the external solution. And so by doing that, clarifying the intention, clarifying the desire, and letting it be redefined at a higher level of consciousness, not the level of consciousness that's dividing and separating everything and judging this and judging that. And like, that'll just lead you to more of the same. But so you create that awareness, you clarify the intention and the desire, and then you access a higher level of consciousness. Now that sounds crazy, but that's what we've been talking about the whole time, whether it's through the subconscious, whether it's through genius, whether it's through meditation, the Silva method. There's so many ways to access this higher level of consciousness and intelligence and begin to work with that. Then we actually begin to integrate into what we really are. We stop being so disconnected from our true power, and suddenly we're beginning to manifest a new life in harmony in relationships. We're beginning to be guided to how to do that and how to redefine going from this limited conditioned ideal to, oh, you're actually this blueprint. This is actually who you're here to be. Oh, you're just like a seed. It's already programmed within you. Oh, now you're accessing the true nature. Like nobody had to go bark at the oak acorn and tell you're a seed, be a seed and grow up. No, don't do that. Do this. It's programmed in. It's natural, right? It's like we have the same thing. We're just so disconnected, and society's telling us, no, you're a fish. You're a this. You're a that. So when we start tuning into that blueprint and listening from that higher level, that some people call the still small voice, the intelligent, whatever it is, learning to access it, will begin to help us step into it naturally. And it takes some courage too, because oftentimes you're going against the grain, but you're listening to what Martin Luther King Jr. called the higher drum major, listening to the higher beat. And as you follow that, you begin to fulfill your gifts. You begin to sprout like that big tree and provide shade. And people begin to see, the genius of the creation you are expressing in alignment with the very desire of the source. Right? So anyway, that's a lot, but all of that to get back to your question about relationships, I believe that's the path to creating harmonious and aligned relationships. First, having that, if you don't have that alignment with the essence of what you truly are and know thyself, it becomes really hard to have harmony with yourself as the other, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you're looking out externally instead of internally. You're grasping like for the women or to prove yourself because society is saying this, you're finally going to prove yourself as a man, but that's just a cycle that you're trapped in. There's never going to be enough to prove yourself as a man.
Yes.
It's never enough. And
and the good news is you don't even need to. That's the sad part.
I know. Oh my God.
You had to. You don't even. The good news is once you start doing the work and finding out how, it almost sounds cliche to say it, but how gifted, blessed, and I'll just say it, the magnificence of your genius in the beauty of who you're here to be. Once you come into harmony with that, you don't need a freaking like that. That's the achievement and the bliss in and of itself. And as you express it, other people get to experience it. And guess what? Some people will receive it and be like, wow. Other people will turn away and be, because it's not for them. You know, those who aren't a resonant match, great. You're here to be fulfilled in the expression. You're here to be in harmony with first the essence of what you are, and then that resonance can happen once you're authentically expressing with the others who are a match, right? And then you can have those beautiful relationships that are in harmony, that are authentic, and that are fulfilling. Well, they're amplifying. That's how I'm going to put it. Because the fulfillment is here and they just amplify what you're already choosing.
Oh, yes. It's growth together. You're just.
That's it. And that in itself is fulfilling.
Yes, you're right. And JJ is here and she is very authentic and she's a good friend of mine. So thanks for watching.
Hello.
Someone commented that they could never be 100% authentic with anyone. What would you say to that? To that person?
I think there is a prudence required in authenticity, where I don't think you have to be 100% authentic with everyone by no means. In fact, I wouldn't say that would be the wisest thing.
But just with anyone, they can't be.
So that I think that could be coming from many different sources or many different ways of being conditioned, and nothing wrong with that. That's probably a safety response. However, finding those that you can be authentic with and practicing it, I think, is also important, because otherwise you live in a consistent state of hiding, contraction, and almost like darkness. Like you never get to see the light of day. You never show yourself in the light, right?
Well, I know that personally, like being around people that I can't, that I can't express my fullness to, because there's a wall there and I can't, they won't allow me to express it. I might express it and they don't say anything about it. They just ignore it. And so I know,
and it's important to find those environments that do create the safety of being able to express authentically and being able to bring out into the light what's really going on. Now, sometimes people, I think there's two types of authenticity. There's dysfunctional authenticity, and there is harmonious authenticity. Harmonious authenticity is the essence of what we really are.
Mm.
Like that authenticity is just, it's often hidden. The dysfunctional and then there's probably stuff in between, but I'm just giving a small framework in the moment. The dysfunctional authenticity to me is when we're being authentic about our dysfunction, right? We're like, I can't stand when you do this, that, and the other, and I'm gonna be authentic today, right? It's like, well, that's
That is
great.
dysfunctional.
Good luck with that. But I do think like when people are triggered and they feel, well, I need to be authentic about my triggering. Well, you're really just being authentic about your dysfunction. That's really an internal problem that you haven't learned to heal yet, and learn to accept that people might be a certain way, or haven't learned to communicate boundaries in a way that can create harmony, whatever. Finding an environment where you can be dysfunctional with an intention, or excuse me, to be authentic with an intention of finding harmony. So if you are feeling dysfunctional, and can be authentic to find harmony and healing, why do we want to express our issues and be authentic? I think is important. Like sometimes if it's to find healing and harmony, I think that's the best thing. If it's to make somebody else change, could be okay, but might lead to disappointment because you can't control that. But in some cases, it can. Like I've had to be authentic in relationships where I was having the issue and I was having the healing, and it helped me heal and it helped create change externally. So it can be beneficial too, if it's a safe environment doing it. But yeah, I think to me, authenticity also means discovering, like many of us are even disconnected with what we really want because we've been so conditioned to suppress and disconnect. Like you ask a man authentic, how do you feel? What do you mean how do I feel? We just need to get it done. Right? Like, oh, okay, well, that's their authentic self because they've been conditioned to be that way, but they've suppressed this other side that they have. It's just so far down, they're disconnected. They're not used to articulating, much less feeling it, you know? So yeah, there's probably many other aspects of authenticity that I'm not talking about, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately. Like, wow. The last thing I'll say about that is I often think coming to a place where we recognize being authentic about where we are does not, and how we're feeling, does not mean that's that's not authentically who we are. That's what we've learned to exhibit. Those are behaviors we've learned to incorporate and identify with, but they do not define the authenticity of who we are. The authenticity of who we are is this beautiful, innocent, loving, feeling aspect that has been conditioned to act a certain way. So being clear and able to distinguish that, I feel it freed me up from a lot of suffering because I finally realized I'm actually not this behavior. I'm actually not this moody kid. I'm actually not this person who wakes up and can't figure out why I feel this way. And I'm liberated from that now. I don't identify with that because I don't exhibit it anymore because I learned how to look at it, go to the root of it, and shift it. So why is it? Wasn't that authentic back then? Yeah, it was authentic behavior, but not my authentic identity by no means. You know? So I think
Right.
that's an important distinction.
Yeah. And as little boys, I mean, getting back to that, I mean, some people say that that's just the way that little boys are. They don't show as many emotions as little girls. They're not as emotional. What would you say to that person? And do you believe that's true?
I think it varies from, person to person. Like there may be some cases of that, and there may be some cases where some little boys way more emotional than some little girls, right? it's gonna, no one person is the same, but on average, yeah, we may see the mass average of men seem to behave this way, or little boys seem to behave this way more, perhaps. But I learned it in my own family, raising. I have a 16-year-old. Well, I hate to date this, but 16-year-old, 24-year-old, and a 30-year-old. Two daughters are the oldest. Son is the 16-year-old. What I've learned is, they go through these cycles. You hear the daughters at the teenagers are going to be a certain way. Boys at 15, 16, 17 going to be a certain way. And some of that's common, but each kid at that age is unique, and they're different from person to person. So for me, it becomes like with our kids, really tuning into that very thing I was telling you about, their blueprints, the intelligence, and realizing, oh, my son needs something different at this age than our daughter did. But I didn't do it based on psychology and I can go to a coach and get info, but I learned to tune into this higher intelligence and get the guidance and the direction from there. The same intelligence my wife and I have been using to guide our lives, our business, the same divine intelligence that guided Michael Jackson to write his music, the same, this genius intelligence that guides us. It's really helped us adapt to our son and adapt to our middle daughter and find those differences. And our middle daughter's journey wasn't like most girls, right? Wasn't like it's supposed to be, right? It could be because we did something different. I don't know, but I know, man, I cherish how it turned out. Our oldest daughter, I cherish how it turned out, and that was the worst of on my behavior. The first time out, I didn't do very well at all, but thank God it came around when I learned to listen, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's I do think boys, on average, can exhibit those kind of patterns, maybe not as emotional in some cases, but part of it too is how they're conditioned, like the self-fulfilling prophecy and the teaching that we pour into them not to be that way. I don't know this because I haven't observed all of humanity, but I would guess all boys have some degree of that emotion and would benefit from learning how to navigate it, in a healthy way.
I would say that.
It's called an assumption. I try not to assume anything, but I suspect that.
Yeah, from what I've seen, that would be very helpful to most young men. So
Right.
definitely. And then, so if there's people watching and men that are watching and struggling with practical steps, what are some tangible steps, like something moment to moment that a man might practice to check in with emotions and to start making sure that he doesn't goes back to this, repetitive cycle of suppression? How do you even start to do that?
That thing we talked about, creating awareness, that's the first step. Like creating awareness of, okay, what woke me up is, oh man, I'm noticing these patterns within my psyche and with myself. Like I'm in a business meeting, I'm starting to get angry, my hands are shaking, I have to hide them. Why am I feeling emotionally out of control? And all we're talking about is percentage splits. And they just happen to disagree with the percentage split. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like starting to wake up and observe suppressed emotion in that pattern lead to dysfunctional behavior, and becoming aware of that in yourself. If you're not aware of it, you just do it. And it's just like you got something on your pants and you can't see it. So there's not a problem to you, but everybody else sees it, right? So becoming self-aware, I think, is that first step. Then technically finding the practices that work for you. For some, it might be prayer and deep being still and inquiring of the divine for help and calling on what religions call the Great Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever, calling on some divine power to help them figure out what the heck is going on. That was the first thing I did after I became aware, right? I prayed because that's what I was taught. Help, right? Uh, for others, they might not believe in that kind of power or whatever, but get help anyway from someone else, right? Get some sort of help and find what's going to work for you to begin to integrate, heal, shift those blocks, those traumas, and integrate with the emotion and learn the gifts of the emotion. The emotional, some people call it the emotional guidance system, right? That allows us to expand into experience, create harmony, and receive what I hear as and call dynamic bliss.
Mm.
For example, grieving. There's a bliss in grieving, a release and a relief.
Your humanity, you're expressing who you are. Yes.
Bingo. It's an aspect of this human experience that allows us to receive something that's for us and that is healthy and that actually brings lightness on the other side, that when suppressed, there is a block, a dysfunction that comes, and an inability to really appreciate life on a higher level when you haven't integrated grief and grieve properly, right? And it creates this heaviness and darkness. That's just one example, much less all the other spectrums of emotion that get suppressed and demonized, right? So finding what works for you is that second step to get help, whether from the higher power, whether from someone else, to get actual practices and tools that help you begin to shift the limited conditioned thinking and the misperceptions you've been taught about emotion, about self, about the human experience, and about how to be fulfilled in life in the first place. Like there's a lot there to unpack for many men, but that's okay. It's a journey. And again, not everybody cares that their house is on fire. Not everybody cares that they got crap all over their pants. Not everybody wants to fix. So it's not for those who don't want to become aware and want to do that work. It's for the ones who start to sense, I smell fire. Where is that coming from? Or my pants feel funny. And they start to stop and do a pattern interrupt. Sometimes life gives it to you. Sometimes life will deliver you a pattern interruption in your life that smacks you upside the head and makes you get aware. That's what happened to me at 18. I had a complete breakdown. And suddenly I realized, oh, this is the fruit of dysfunction. Maybe I need to find a new way, And hallelujah, I was lucky to be interrupted that early. But many people have it later. Doesn't matter how we get there. The key is that awareness, beginning to clarify, finding a way, a practice that works for you so you can decouple the conditioning that is causing the dysfunction, whether it be trauma or other things, and then you can get to that authenticity, to that seed of who you truly are, what you're designed for, why you're really here, and then claim what I hear as the birthright of life. And that's bliss, dynamic bliss. Like that's our birthright. One wise man said it this way: I came to bring you life more abundantly. Right? Life isn't supposed to suck. The burden is supposed to be light, not heavy, So yeah.
Amen to that. And JJ's saying, love that. And we are a seed. Yes, we are a seed.
Yes.
And we can't shut down who we're meant to be. It's beautiful, and we're glorious in our essence.
My favorite practice, by the way, you talked about practical, like I can go back to when I was in an actual meeting having a discussion about percentage splits, and my hands beginning to shake and having to hide them. And I didn't have a practice then. Now, if something was beginning to happen like that, I'd notice how I'm feeling, create that awareness, expand that awareness into the body and emotion, begin to watch my breath, breathe, to relax, to calm the nervous system. And then I'd use practices that I that work for me. Like I use this mental align, allow, let go, something I tapped in and received like a song, and it works for me. It does something. I've taught it to many other people. You can get it on my website, align, allow, let go. A simple meditation expands the awareness and it helps us access these things that calm and that create harmony in the moment. So that's a practical tool I would have used back then. But since I didn't have it, it set me on a search for those kinds of tools.
Right. Well, gosh, I'm going to have to, I mean, I'm going to be processing, my heart will be processing this and all this conversation for the rest of the day. And tell us where people can find you, John.
Sure. So my personal site is johnstringerinc.com. That's johnstringerinc.com. And usually the tour page will have different places I'm speaking, singing. We've got a wonderful retreat coming up in Jamaica and host a lot of different retreats. My business site with my wife is called Healing Arts Management, but it's Healing Arts MGMT. So mgmt.com. Healing Arts Management or healingartsmgmt.com. That has all of the different things we do, including the podcast, the retreats, some courses and things like that. So those are the best places to find us. And we also manage other talent and we'll be launching summits, launching tours for other artists that we're managing, things like that.
Great. And everybody, please subscribe to this channel if you're watching. And what's the name of the podcast people can find you?
The Alignment Podcast. Also the same name, John Stringer, The Alignment Podcast on Instagram specifically, thanks to a hacker.
Yeah, I feel like I had a hacker. Something was up with my computer. It was blasting. Anyway, thankfully, we're able to keep going. And yeah, any final words?
Remember that your power is often experienced when we create that awareness, we follow those steps, we find the practice that works for us, and we begin to see the perfection of life, and we begin to realize our oneness with the essence of life. And that brings a whole new experience to it. So that's last words from me.
Well, let's end on that. Thank you so much, John, for this wonderful, this wisdom. I'm very appreciative. And like I said, my heart will be taking it in.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. Much love to you all.
Yes. Thank you, JJ, and everyone that's watching. We'll see you again next week.